that really breaks down, I think a lot of times people buy a technology or they start using AI and they think, oh my gosh, this is going to fix all of our problems. We're going to wake up tomorrow and our revenue goals are going to magically hit. But if you're not in the right mindset, if you're not operationalizing those changes and you're not using that data and that AI to change behavior, and you just continue to just do what you were doing but quicker, you're certainly not going to see the success that you're wanting to see.
Angela, thanks for joining this morning. Let's kick off and jump straight in. Just in case there's one person who hasn't heard of Outreach, I don't believe there is, there couldn't be, right, at this stage of your maturity, but just in case there's one person who's not familiar with Outreach and your mission, why don't we kick off and just talk about Outreach, your mission, where you are in terms of your own maturity point, before we jump into some of our other topics this morning.
Yeah, so Outreach has been in business for about 10 plus years. We like to say, we are a system of action. We really help reps amplify their impact across the buyer journey through AI, through pipeline activities, through deal management, through forecasting. Every part of the customer journey and the buyer journey is really what we help sellers and revenue leaders manage so that they can hit all of their revenue goals.
Brilliant, awesome. And Angela, your own role within Outreach, please tell us just a little bit just around sort of your backstory and then sort of a feel for your sort of day-to-day perspective within the organization.
Yeah, so, I joined Outreach about 3 years ago, and I joined in the sales development space. And so I took on the sales development org, and it was interesting because I joined Outreach because I had implemented Outreach as a sales leader in other organizations that I'd been part of. And I always found that as soon as I implemented it and I started really using the tool to drive the behaviors that were necessary to hit our revenue goals, I continued to succeed in my career. My teams continued to succeed. And so when I got the opportunity to join Outreach, I thought, okay, let's go. This is a platform I know well, I believe in. And so when I joined Outreach, I was doing the sales development leadership role. Really leaned into the process of that, scaled it from the North America team through EMEA, took on the global team. And then because those processes were working so well, they asked me to take on new logo. So I took on new logo, implemented those processes, scaled that success through that team. And then that was working so well, they asked me to take on the growth side of the house. So now I also have the commercial and mid-market growth teams along with those new logo teams. In my space with the new logo sellers and the growth sellers, I want to say I probably have just roughly 80 reps under me and about 9 to 10 leaders that run those teams.
Okay, so very healthy, scaled infrastructure and size of team. That's awesome. So you're like me, we get a chance to kind of run sales organizations, but we're also in the market speaking to other sales leaders about their challenges, their pain points. So we share this same sort of duality about having a lens of our own business, but also sort of the market. So let me ask you a question. When you see most successful deployments of Outreach, is it by company stage, is it company maturity point, or is it a mindset? And how would you describe that mindset that helps embrace a kind of a change to process-driven technology to get different and better results?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Anthony. Actually, I always say this to, especially on the growth side, when we're working really closely with our customers. We're selling, of course, a technology, but the technology is only as good as the leader who's implementing it and utilizing that technology, especially on the AI side, to change behavior. And so you're absolutely right when you say, what is the biggest difference? It's really a leadership team from the very top that goes, okay, I'm going to utilize this technology to implement workflows, to change behavior, to operationalize oversight so that we can continue to scale success. When that really breaks down, I think a lot of times people buy a technology or they start using AI and they think, oh my gosh, this is going to fix all of our problems. We're going to wake up tomorrow and our revenue goals are going to magically hit. But really, these are tools to help leaders lead better and help reps execute better. But if you're not in the right mindset, if you're not operationalizing those changes and you're not using that data and that AI to change behavior, and you just continue to just do what you were doing but quicker, you're certainly not going to see the success that you're wanting to see.
That makes total sense. So, which makes it kind of a challenge and an opportunity then maybe to find your sweet spot when you're actually selling to target customers. So, when you inquire your go to market, it's not necessarily a driver of how long they're in business, how big their team is, their points of maturity. You're really trying to assess, like, is there a perspective or a mindset that's willing to drive and embrace change where you can add the most impact?
That's right. Yeah, I always like to say it's really leading indicator leadership. You're really focused on what are the leading indicators that will create that predictable success. When we have leaders who are only focused on outcome, they're never going to implement the processes that multiply and scale the success that they're looking for.
Awesome. Okay. So as part as you're getting to a kind of a sales cycle, is there qualification points to assess what sort of workflows are there, what can be sort of managed and implemented better at scale through consistency, through your platform? And are there instances where you just say, you're a great fit, you would make a great logo for us, but your point of maturity or readiness, sophisticated across the curve just doesn't align to us? And if you find yourself in that situation, like, how do you handle it?
You're right. It's really regardless of the size of the company, regardless of their maturity as a sales organization or as an organization as a whole, what we need to see across the buyer journey is their ability to open their eyes to changing their workflows if necessary. Oftentimes we meet potential customers, prospects who come to us open and willing and going, hey, it's broken. I don't know what's broken. Help me implement a new workflow. Help tell me which data points I need to be looking at. Help tell me where I need to insert AI so that we're moving quicker and we're ready to hit our goals. Sometimes we have buyers who come to us and say, this is exactly how we do it. This is what I know I need to be looking at. And so that requires a bit more of that consultative sell where we say, hey, and this is where I think it's so exciting, Anthony, honestly, that we use the product and we sell to other sellers, is because we can go, yeah, I get that you're using that, you're doing that, that's your workflow, that's your approach. Talk to me a little more about that, because here, outreach on outreach, this is what we've found to be more successful. And I think that helps them trust our expertise, because we drink our own champagne. And where if we were using another platform, or what am I trying to say? If I was selling a technology that I didn't use every day, that didn't help me hit my goals, and we weren't talking to the exact same persona that I am, it would be a little more difficult to, I think, shift their mindset. But yeah, but I find sales leaders, and Anthony, you may feel this way, but I find sales leaders in a lot of instances are open. They want to know how to get better. Tell me, I'm competitive. Like, tell me how to get better. And so oftentimes I think if you can open their mind to a quicker and easier way to hit the goals, to make the money, they're usually open to it.
Totally open. We find that in terms of how we sell at MarketStar, like one of the ways that we actually kind of open up conversations is really curiosity around benchmarking, right? Looking at where we would think we have a customer in a similar category, and like, how do programs sort of run? What should they expect so they can get a grade? Like you just said, just tapping into that sort of competitive spirit just to learn to do better. Everyone can be optimized. And I think true good sales leaders have got this open radar to find the ways that they can optimize and improve conversions all through their organization and their structure. I like what you said about drinking your own champagne. I used to say eat our own dog food, but yours is your example is a lot more exciting. So you mentioned something, right? So just give us a feel for what you feel has been sort of the most interesting, significant change to the category that you're in at Outreach. So you mentioned AI. Everybody, the world and his dog, is now got an AI initiative. Everyone's CEO is pushing down, what are we doing with AI? I know that the market is trying to find meaning from a sales point of view of how they can run with it, how they can build it into workflows in a meaningful way. Everyone's got a bunch of experiments, but it seems like you've actually plowed in and invested a good amount of R&D to build and embrace AI into the tool stack. So I'd love you to just share with just how it is implemented, what impact it creates, and where do you find your customer base in terms of its embracing of it, and the value that they can get in the short, medium, and even in the long term?
One of the things that we have successfully done is really implemented these agents across the entire rep workflow. And at the user level, Anthony, it's really exciting because I find that most sellers are always thinking about how they can write and draft the perfect email. And I feel like as a sales leader, I'm always like, just get on the phone, just go, just go, just go. But sales leaders and reps, we're often going, how can we personalize at scale? We're seeing in the research certainly backs this up, that the buyer journey has to continue to get more and more personal, even more now than it has been in the past. And so understanding how to personalize at scale is something that we've really embraced with our AI prospecting agent. And so utilizing that to craft the perfect email so that sellers aren't spending that 15, 20 minutes of time for each email, but more like 30 seconds. And all of a sudden the personalization is really, really impactful. So that's some of the ways. But and then we have AI agents in the deal management section of our platform, where it's helping us understand where we've inserted risk, what the deal health is, what actions we need to take to ensure that we can get this deal across the line. And so really, really prescriptive on that opportunity management side of the house. What I find to be the most impactful for me as a revenue leader is our AI assisted forecasting. And so I'm constantly calling a number, which we, Anthony, of course, know, right? If you say you're going to commit to a number, the board expects you to bring that number. Your executive team expects you to bring that number. AI helps me ensure that my forecast is accurate day over day, week over week. And so but it doesn't just stop at me. It really scales all the way through my organization. And so even at the rep level, what are they calling based off of their pipeline coverage, their historical win rates? All of these things are taken into account. And so when they walk in and say, Angela, you can count on me to close this amount of revenue, I can trust that, and I can take that all the way up to the board. And that's really been most impactful for me, and I think for our customers too.
Well, that is huge. I mean, that is just probably one of the biggest topics that all sales leaders are thinking. And if they're not thinking about it all the time, they're dreaming about it at night at sleep. It's just in this whole pursuit of predictable, sustainable growth, right? This is really one of the things that really the call, the forecast, and the robustness of it without activity, especially just in changes of the market. The whole industry, a lot of our industries have come through kind of a period of resizing and readjustment. And what we've seen as trends within the industry is just a little bit of a proclivity towards, overhyping expectations to make sure that every organization feels they're like on a good recovery path. So what you're saying today about sort of AI being built into the engine to take out maybe some of the subjectivity around the forecasting, be a little bit more robust and benchmarkable on the call and the predictability of pipeline. Can you just tell me just how you feel that's sort of making Outreach's sort of platform more unique in relation to the category and maybe the competitor space as you see it?
Sure. Yeah. So I think one of the things that makes us especially unique, Anthony, is that we are helping anyone who's in charge of revenue, whether it's their own book of business, the rep, or the sales leader, the rev ops person, the CRO, identify the patterns that are necessary to bring success. And that really I think anchors back, Anthony, to what I was talking about that mindset. Like as a seller, as a sales leader, you have to be ready to find those patterns. And once you do, our platform also lets you execute on those patterns in a way that brings the art back to sales. But I like to say there is no art in sales. That there's only the science. And if you can identify the pattern that will bring the predictable success, all you have to do is execute on it. And I think that that's what differentiates us here at Outreach, is that we help reps and sales leaders, revenue leaders, identify those patterns and then find spots in their workflow to truncate their execution of that pattern so that they can not just repeat it, but repeat it quickly.
How are you feeling about sort of the optimization of being able to make a seller's day in the life a little bit more efficient? Are you finding that Outreach as a platform is enabling sales leaders to look at their headcounts in a different way, like deriving revenue in a different way, but by headcount, in a new lens now by being able to optimize, the day in the life, the workflow, taking out some of the non-profitable revenue time of a seller's day. And does that translate into any metric that you take to market?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked about earlier, right, with just like even everything from research to, email construction, all of those things, account mapping. There's a million ways, even deal management. I think when I think about as a sales leader, we go to sellers and go, hey, you got to get this deal closed, and they go, okay, great. Well, what are you gonna do? And then I'll give them a call. Oh, okay. All right. You know what I mean? So I think even that back and forth in the coaching aspect of deal management, we can get so prescriptive. And so it's difficult, I think, in some instances, Anthony, for me to quantify all of the ways throughout the entire workflow where we've saved time, and not just saved time through like the activities of taking a 20-minute email to a 2-minute email, or account research from a half an hour to a few minutes, but all of the really, really specific like coaching, like what am I trying to say? Like a heat-seeking missile. We can pinpoint exactly what needs to happen and exactly what they need to execute on, where oftentimes you spend a tremendous amount of time in the trial and error portion of that. And so those non-revenue generating activities really just continue to fall to the wayside. And so when you think about it from a headcount perspective, you can do a lot more with less. And I know that that's like the, very in vogue thing for us to say right now, but it really is true, because I can say, okay, I've got a team of 8. I can expect them to produce this based off of their daily workflows, and based off of this pattern I'm inputting. I can get really quantified on what I can expect their output to be based off the prescriptive pattern that they're going to be executing on, their workflow that they're going to be executing on each day. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how I think about it.
No, that's perfect. That makes total sense. So every revenue leader is trying to define the most perfect, organization, fully tight and fully optimized. Tell us about where you sometimes see, to some degree, over-engineering in sales teams and within organizations.
Well, certainly through point solutions, where a revenue leader will say, okay, I have my sales development team on this platform utilizing this. This is how they're executing. This is where we're pulling data from so we can make decisions on that particular team. Here's our new logo team. This is what they're using. This is how we use it. And even this is what we use for the pipeline. This is what we use for deal management. This is what we use for forecasting. And then here's my account management team or my customer success team. And this is what they're using. And this is what we found to be successful for them. But oh my goodness, something's happening. We're breaking throughout the entire buyer journey. We can't figure out why we can't get it from opportunity to closed won, why we can't get it from closed won to retain and expand. And I think that that's the over engineering that's happening, is these point solutions or the silos that happen across the customer journey. And that's one of the reasons I think, that's back to your question about what differentiates us as a platform. Outreach really brings all of that together. And so everyone's able to make the same database decisions. Everyone's able to execute at a higher level because we're all working together. And it's not just for the benefit of the rep or the sales leader inside of that organization, but certainly their customer base as well.
Yeah, the customer journey has that continuity without it being, even though the revenue transitions through teams and points of focus, but just that continuity of the customer revenue life cycle. That's awesome. So tell us about the future. Like, where do you continue to innovate, continue to expand your reach, your client profile, like the industries, your very interesting segmentation. When we started our partnership with Outreach numbers of years ago, we would have seen that your tool and platform was heavily embraced within the technology industry. I mean, every industry is now looking for efficiency, trying to digitize their sales footprint. But tell us about the future. Where do you think you will further diversify? What other things can you share with the audience today about like further feature enhancement, further innovation within the platform?
Gosh, okay. I like to say, workflows are a religion and we only have room for the converted. And so one of the things that's really exciting for me about the future of Outreach is that we are creating these AI agents across every workflow in the customer journey. And so, of course, the AI prospecting agent, the research agent, the coaching agent, the forecasting agent. But one of the things I'm most excited about, and I think when we think about the market right now, everyone's really leaning into their current customer base. How are we retaining our current customers? How are we expanding our current customers? And so the agents on that side of the house is the thing I think I'm most excited about. And certainly as a leader of a robust account management team, it's something that we're really embracing. And I know none of the other sales execution platforms really have implemented any portion of either AI or their product that really is helping to focus revenue leaders on that portion, their customer base. And so that's something that I'm really excited about as we move forward in outreach, is leaning more into that customer base and supporting organizations in retaining and expanding them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's again such a key theme where kind of the last chapter of sort of evolution within sort of tech sales has really been around that customer acquisition cycle, but really just sort of making sure that customers are maximized and deployed, and staying healthy is certainly key, and a key topic that every revenue leader needs to be thinking about. Well, that's great. Listen, I really want to thank you again for joining us this morning. Really excited for the conversation. Looking forward to more successful years as partners with Outreach over here at MarketStar. And looking forward to getting the opportunity to hopefully speak to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. I've had a great time. Always love talking shop. So let's do it again.